Okay, class, this is video number 3. We're continuing on to the next set of types of sentences. That's why it's labeled types of sentences number 2. This is a step beyond the first style when we did declarative, imperative, interrogative, and exclamatory. This is a much deeper idea of how to label and look at the structure of your sentence. So it's how the words are placed together to decide what type of sentence they are. Remembering independent and dependent clauses from yesterday's video with the idea that they both have a subject and a verb, but one can stand on its own, the other one requires more information. That review will help you to understand the next 4 different types of sentences. So the first one we have is a simple sentence. Each one of these has a formula. Think of it as the idea of a mathematical formula that will help you to better understand the structure of these sentences. So a simple sentence has one independent clause. That's all it has. It has a subject, it has a verb, it has all of the information it needs to be by itself. It can have modifiers as well, but it is our simple sentence. So looking here at our examples, we have she smiled. We have our subject, we have our verb. It has everything we need. Stephanie plays the piano every afternoon. Noticing here we have subject, verb, and modifiers, but it doesn't need more information. Now, in our very first video, we talked about this idea of periodic sentences, where the subject and the verb come after the modifiers. These are usually simple sentences as well, because our subject and our verb phrase in this case is at the end. Everything that comes before it is modifiers. It's phrases, it's prepositional phrases, it's information and imagery that describe and enhance the second part of the sentence, which is simple. It can stand on its own. Everything else in the sentence is modifiers. So even though this sentence is 3 lines typed, it is still a simple sentence. Okay, compound sentences. The formula on this is the idea that we have 2 or more independent clauses. Again, still on independent clauses. They are joined by a coordinating conjunction and punctuation. Our coordinating conjunctions are what we call fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. That is fanboys. Now, the punctuation is it usually comes with a comma, and then you would have your word. The exception to this is the semicolon. Okay, you can have either the comma and the fanboys, or you can have the semicolon. The majority of the time, it's going to be the comma and the and versus it not being the semicolon. So looking at our samples here, she smiled, she laughed. Those are our 2 subject and verb combinations, but yet we have this idea that they are joined together by this coordinating conjunction. Noting we have the comma, noting we have the and. I highly suggest when you are looking at these samples that you write them down, that you mark the subjects, you mark the verbs, and you circle the conjunctions so that you're getting used to seeing how everything goes and being able to pick them out and label them more easily. The next one, Stephanie was playing the piano, so Sally went to the store. Now, noting here again, we have that so. We have that comma and a so. So we have a fanboy, specifically the S, and we have the comma, which makes it compound. Okay. The next style we have is what we call complex sentences. So a complex sentence has one independent clause and one or more dependent clause. Remembering a dependent clause has a subordinating conjunction that requires more information. So it cannot stand on its own. Common examples: after, although, because, since, when. Sometimes you will get a relative pronoun instead. Often ones are that, which, and who. So looking at these examples, even though the exam was quite difficult, all the students passed. So as we're reading it, we're noticing here that there's a comma in between the two, so we know that these are two different clauses. All the students passed can stand on its own. So it has a I that we put it, or an independent. This one, even though the exam was quite difficult, needs more information. So we would label it as dependent. What shows us that it needs more information is the subordinating conjunction that we're getting at the beginning here with even though. Okay, next example. You can't go out and play until you've finished your homework. You can't go out and play until you've finished your homework. Noticing here we have two verbs in the front, but remember you can have more than one subject or verb within the same clause. Okay, and they're joined specifically here with until. Until is a coordinating conjunction, so it requires more information. You can go out and play would be our independent, and the next one, until you've finished your homework, is dependent. It needs more information. Okay, the next one we have, clearing my slide, is the compound complex sentence. This is our long sentences. This is where we have a lot of information in it. So we have one independent clause and we have at least two dependent clauses. Now, keeping this in mind, this means you're going to have 3 clauses at least in total. Okay, remembering that means 3 sets of subject and verbs. The key here, though, is that it's not 2 dependent clauses that are the same. One has to be a coordinating conjunction and one has to use a subordinating conjunction. So this is where you get the compound. Compound meaning you're using coordinating conjunctions. Complex meaning you're using subordinating conjunctions. So you're joining all 3 styles into one sentence. Okay, so keeping that in mind, because I paid attention, I got an A on the test, and I was so happy. Noticing here, I went through and I did the 3 sets of subjects and verbs at the same time. And now circling the conjunctions. Because I paid attention is a dependent clause because it has the subordinating conjunction there. I got an A on the test can stand on its own, so it's an independent clause. And I was so happy. You can have the comma here if that helps, and you have the and, so it joins them together, making this the coordinating conjunction that pulls it all together. So this also would be a dependent clause. Okay, so dependent, independent, dependent. So this is our subordinating conjunction. This is our coordinating. So as one of each. Okay, next example. Because Stephanie was playing the piano, Sally went to the store and I played video games. Again, noticing the pattern. Because is our subordinating conjunction. And then our comma and, noticing the comma is up here, is our coordinating conjunction. So we're going in the same pattern. We have dependent, we have independent, and we have dependent again. Okay? Keep these in mind. These sentences can get really muddied with too much information and labeling here, but it's important that you get used to marking them so that you can identify them. Okay, last slide. This is our confidence check. What I want you to do for this is I want you to write the sentences in your notes and be prepared to discuss them tomorrow. I don't want you to just write them. I want you to label them as simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. There are 4 samples here. I suggest that you practice marking. Going back one slide, I suggest that you practice marking the subjects, and the verbs. I also suggest that you practice with the circling of the conjunctions so you're getting into this idea of how things should look and feel, and it helps you to do it. Even also, if it helps you to label the independent and the dependent clauses to be able to decipher everything. So before you end your video, make sure you write these down in your notes, label them, and we will go over them in class on our next meeting. Have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.